All right. A very good afternoon to all. Ladies and gentlemen, International Council for Circular Economy is back with yet another webinar. I'm Susanna Lal. I'm the project manager at ICCE, and I welcome you all to this webinar on research in circular economy. Just last month, ICCE released its journal on circular economy as the first journal on circular economy in India. The journal has received enormous response from the readers, and we hope you must have gone through it by now. If not, you're welcome to access the journal by clicking on the link in the chat box. So I have sent the link right here, and journal can be accessed through it. ICC is committed to delivering the highest quality research, and we're confident that the journal will mature into a major publication of interest in the field of circular economy. That said, ICC believes that research in circular economy is important to accelerate the transition towards a circular economy. And ICC has increasingly engaged in knowledge sharing through our publications and far reaching content. Our research work provides information and advice that helps government, businesses, and citizens to take action. Today, our speaker shall discuss about the importance of research in circular economy. So without any further ado, I take this opportunity to welcome our speakers and moderator for the day. Thank you so much, Professor Prabhu, Dr. Abhishek Sharma, Mr. Animesh Ghosh, and Dr. Vivek Soni for joining us today. So I'll give a quick introduction of our speaker, starting with Professor Jaideep Prabhu. Professor Jaideep Prabhu is a professor of marketing at Jawaharlal Nehru Professor of Indian Business and Enterprise and director of the Center for India and Global Business at Judge Business School, University of Cambridge. He has published in and is on the editorial board of leading journals such as the Journal of Marketing. He has appeared on BBC News 24, BBC Radio 4, and Bloomberg Business Week, and has been profiled in Business Week, BBC World Service, The Economist, The Financial Times, Le Monde, The New York Times, and The Times. He's a co-author of Jugaad Innovation, Think Frugal, Be Flexible, Generate Breakthrough Growth, described by The Economist as the most comprehensive book yet on the subject of frugal innovation. Thank you so much, Professor Jaideep, for joining us. Our second speaker is Dr. Abhishek Sharma. Dr. Abhishek Sharma has over 13 years of experience in field of process engineering with research interest in waste valorization, alternate energy, and multi-scale processes. He's currently working as professor in Department of Chemical Engineering in Manipal University, Jaipur. He's also holding Dr. Ramdas Pai Research Chair position in the organization. He's a member of technical committee constituted under Commission of Air Quality Management by Government of India for R&D activities related to air pollution in NCR and adjoining areas. He's working on technology development and implementation projects on waste to resources sanctioned by industries and Department of Science and Technology, Government of India. He's establishing a Center of Excellence for Waste Transformation with participation of Indian Chemical Council and other agencies. So that is Dr. Abhishek Sharma. Welcome to the webinar, sir. Our third speaker is Mr. Animesh Ghosh. Animesh Ghosh is an avid proponent of pillars of sustainability. He has experience working with the central government, state governments, United Nations, non-government organizations, and private organizations in India on allied perspectives of sustainability. He has been executing rural as well as urban livelihood and social welfare programs for more than a decade to ameliorate agriculture and nutrition, crafts and tourism, education ecosystem, energy, water, health, sanitation, and micro, small, and medium enterprises. He's currently a doctoral research scholar at the IIT Kharagpur. His research is on an eminent driver of sustainability, that is circular economy. So those are the three speakers for the day. Finally, I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Vivek Soni. Dr. Vivek Soni is a distinguished faculty of operations, supply chain management, and business analytics at one of the well-reputed educational system, Jaipuria School of Business in India. Professor Soni has deep insights into wide management areas, ethical interests for India prosperity, is also fellow of Institution of Engineers India, a certified independent director by Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India, and works as a consultant to wide aspects of energy environment nexus, India's strategic development on energy, role of sustainable technologies to reduce carbon footprint, and technology based climate change adoption. So, once again, I would like to welcome all our speakers and the moderator. And without any further ado, I would now hand over the mic to our moderator, Dr. Vivek Soni. Dr. Soni, over to you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Sujana. Thank you for a nice introduction. So, I'm blamed to receive such a esteemed audience here, and then moreover, the esteemed distinguished Professor Jaideep Prabhu, Dr. Abhishek Sharma, and Dr. Mr. Animesh Ghosh. So I'm happy to interact with all of you, and I just want to start the discussion now. Okay, because probably we have the interest on the mutual interest on the circular economy, and all of us are working in this area since long time. Probably all of us are also belongs to different geographical location, and probably we have a different understanding and a different the aspirations to follow the circular economy as a agenda, right? So am I audible to Dr. Abhishek ji?
Yes, you are audible, Dr. Vivek.
Right, sir. Right. Good afternoon. So the first question is that, considering that circular economy intervention is a discrete process and also need discrete approaches to deal with the waste reduction and elimination, do you believe that taking circular intervention in country like India is a difficult task?
Thank you, Dr. Vivek, for this question, and thank you to Susanna also, for allowing me to start first. Due to certain reasons, I have to leave a bit early. Nevertheless, regarding this particular question which you have asked, as we all know that India, currently you are at 1.38 billion population, and it is imperative for us to go towards circular economy. We have no other alternative with respect to resource generation from the linear economy. We have to focus on resource recovery using circular economy, and circular economy has its own, you can say, advantages in terms of economical development of the nation. So, based on that data provided, circular economy development path in India could create an annual value of 14 lakh crores, close to $218 billion by 2030, and close to $624 billion by 2050, in comparison to the current development scenario. So that's another reason we should focus on circular economy or circularity and sustainability. Now, there are different pathways through which you can go towards circular economy. One is maximizing the resource recovery, decreasing the pollution, creating another business opportunities, as I just highlighted its importance. Now coming to that, the crux of the matter, which is how to intervene, circularity in the Indian context. It's really a difficult task, undoubtedly, with respect to waste reduction and elimination. I'll just share a few examples, seeing that the time limitation. I won't go in the depth of each and every example. First example which I want to cover over here is related to municipal solid waste. So as we know that, in India, treating municipal solid waste is a big problem. Even at the landfill site, there's a lot of open dumping is occurring. Now, the problem actually it's a multidimensional, if you want to ask me, because we are working extensively with industries on this front. And one major issue is the improper segregation at the source. Though we are trying a lot on the segregation of this MSW coming from urban as well as rural areas, the segregation is not up to the mark which you want to see in other parts of the world. So that's one challenge which is causing this treatment of MSW as a big problem. Another is when you bring that to the landfill site where we are treating MSW, the other challenges which we have noticed while working with industries that ultimately there's a lot of illegal dumping also occurring. For example, one such example is these trucks actually bring the demolition waste, debris, and the construction material just to add, just to increase the weight of the truck. So that is a big problem. There's a the detailed report on that, which you also worked. So the problem due to which is that mixing causes another challenge at the site to treat this MSW waste. And what comes out after MSW for energy recovery or for resource recovery, there's a lot of contamination already present over there. So the energy value decreases. So one fraction which is being used is refuse derived fraction from MSW, which is being used by cement industries. They co-combust it. But the problem with most of these industries, which we have noticed with the cement industries, they are not getting enough calorific value. So because of this illegal dumping, the calorific value goes down and there is no proper treatment is available at the site. That's one particular example from MSW, and that is why it's a bit challenging in the Indian environment to go towards circular economy per se. Another major example, which I think we all have heard recently in last few months, especially in the month of November and December, which here is the stubble burning problem, the agriculture residue. It's a major issue in the country right now. Though no, it's not only in that northern India. It's that only that season actually allows that pollution to accumulate. Otherwise, it is all over India. This illegal burning, rather I should say. But the problem actually lies. It's not illegal practically. If you're going to understand correctly, that the problem is the farmers don't have a particular solution, and they have to clear their fields. So right now, a lot of solution being developed, like for example, biodecomposers. They are relief to a certain extent to the farmers. But even that's not a complete solution, because the time is not enough for the farmers to clear their field, and they have to go for the next crop. So for that purpose, what they do, they just burn it, and then whatever is that mineral matter, they allow to go in the soil as a potential fertilizer. So there, the technological intervention is very important. But to convince the farmers for that kind of to create that kind of ecosystem for treating this waste, or going for the circular economy to utilize that waste for resource recovery or you can say value-added product generation, is a very challenging task in the given environment. So I just quoted these two examples. There are a number of other examples on which we are currently working. For example, tire waste and plastic waste coming from paper plastic industry, which is there's a packaging waste. All these waste can lead towards circular economy by resource recovery. But we find a number of challenges, starting from technological intervention to the development of ecosystem or the support which you receive from different bodies in the nation. So I hope I've been able to in that given amount of time, I've been able to convey the message.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Abhishek. Certainly, yes, to the extent you have narrated very well. And I mean, you have very well touched upon the very important issues of waste treatment. That's a very challenging task like country like India. Certainly, we are working on that for providing the possible solutions from the policymaker side. But often it is seen that there is a other aspect to generate the waste from the country, from the residential sector. So if we organize our actions, if we organize our thought process, our energy to minimize the waste at a household level, right? So this kind of consideration leads to the some input and some challenges to the policymakers, that how can we minimize the solid waste that is going to the sanitary levels, or maybe to sanitary, maybe the landfills, right? So in that context, probably we are working, and as a very good intervention, International Circular Council, it is also working in a very good manner. So another question which is coming in my mind is that how does the collaboration of Indian policymakers with European policymakers may put joint effort in abdicating carbon footage and promoting sustainability through circularity?
Yeah, I think it's a very valid question at this junction, because right now we are going towards being circular in nature and with respect to sustainability. Carbon plays a significant role over there. We have to reduce our carbon footages with respect to time. That's another way, like, we can look with the lens of clean energy over there. So there's a lot of partnership which is established with European Union over here. There's a European India Clean Energy and Climate Partnership, which we initiated in 2016. The very purpose of that is to deploy renewable energy, promote energy efficiency, collaborate on smart grid and storage technologies. There are different pathways through this collaboration, through this active participation we are developing with EU for decarbonization and growing our electricity system, basically for transport and building and light industry electrification. A couple of examples over there, very crucial at this stage. Is now India is on the pathway of 450 gigawatt of renewable energy by 2030. That is, we have announced, and there's a roadmap which we are developing. European Union plays a significant role over there because they have already have that kind of experience in wind and solar PVs, for such kind of clean energy generation. And there they can provide a lot of support to the Indian, government to take this whole, initiative in the right direction. Another big announcement which came last year only by our, Prime Minister of India, which is the hydrogen economy and hydrogen mission has been announced, national hydrogen mission, and in which India has announced your total around $215 million of contribution for renewable energy development and this hydrogen economy. And hydrogen is a powerful tool over here right now, to shift towards, you can say, green economy or the circular economy. And European Union has already has that kind of experience through the Hydrogen Alliance, which can play a significant or instrumental role for India, through this kind of framework. Now, this collaboration which you are having with EU is not restricted to only this. Now, another another recent understanding which you have built with EU is in recent 2020 in July, which I'm quoting very specifically, that the joint declaration has been established for India-EU resource efficiency and circular economy partnership. The very aim of that partnership to support and strengthen and basically to have that kind of cooperation between EU and India in these particular areas related to sustainability. There, the kind of ecosystem which Europe has built, the kind of synergies which they are having for renewable energy and circular economy, that can be used by India. There are certain examples being created by EU, for example, Netherlands and Italy, and that other countries who are moving towards circular economy, they can give that kind of support, and can also being a front runner over there, where India can take quote those examples, and then develop their own framework depending on your own condition and the requirements, because definitely we have a different requirement from European Union. We have our own challenges, we have our own opportunities, but that framework could be developed based on that example, which you can and so the policy framework which you're talking and the legislation requirement for circular economy, these effective models which we can take from European Union would be very useful for technology development. And definitely there's a significant role of R&D over there. They're also European Union has taken a lead, as we know that they are 5 or 10 years ahead of other parts of the world in the R&D. So all those examples or those technology that they have built, we can use it to go towards circular economy.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. Yes. Correct. So probably you know that the India is very sensible in its character, right? Sensible in the sense we focus on our actions, we give more leverage to people. In the sense, then people will take a thing granted to generate more and more waste, right? So in that way, given the fact that India is sensible country, follows a soft approach to deal with the people so that we can minimize the waste, using the different approaches of collaboration, using the policy intervention, or maybe using the hardcore part of it by treating the waste. Okay, so how the principle of circularity in India can be compared with the other nations? If yes, do you have any sort of feeling with at this stage that we can compare the the concept of circularity as a whole, which is being considered across the nations. Number one. Number two, how to improve the India's approach to adopting new advancement in technology and measuring innovation as far as circular economy is concerned.
Okay. So basically, it's a two-part question. Let me start with part one over here. So you rightly point out that India is quite sensible in its approach towards circular economy. We have our own pace, and definitely, as we discussed in the beginning, we have our own challenges as well. But yes, we have taken the right path now, as we know, and it is relevant for us at this stage. Now, as per to that Circularity Gap Report, which was published in 2020, as I recall that, currently the global economy is only around 9% circular in nature. So that means still around 90% of these resources which is entering in our economy, like, close to 100 billion tons per year, is being wasted. It's a significant number. So it's not that it's affecting us, with respect to economy only. It has its own impact on the environment also, which we know. So for example, the kind of pollution which is increasing not only in the land, but also in the water bodies, in the oceans. We all have heard, time to time about those issues. So now a lot of countries have already taken the lead. Let's take that example. Again, I'll just very specifically quoting the Netherlands in that region, in the European region. So it's one of the leading countries that work on the circular economy. They are targeting the very ambitious target to become 100% circular, by 2050. And they already started working on those strategies to how they should manage their raw materials to products and services more effectively, because that is the key. So reduction, reuse, recycle, we always talk about. Now, the next step is basically, other than recycle or reuse, is how you can basically generate resources from your waste. That is the key right now. And there's a lot of focus, not only in like Europe, in Australia, because I belong to that place. I worked there for around more than 5 years, and I'll be again traveling soon. A lot of focus, impetus is there in Australia also on utilizing their own waste and generating resources out of it. So globally, if you're going to look, US has taken that lead. Europe is way ahead. Australia is taking that lead. Singapore, is working very efficiently on that front. India, yes, definitely. We are, in that race. We are not leading, definitely. But the pace with which we are going, definitely in the right direction. And the government has to play a very crucial role over here with their policies. So, for example, one particular example I'll quote for tire waste. Now, recently, because I'm part of that committee also for pollution control board. So earlier it was being said that you can't treat tire waste using certain technologies in India, but now it's being considered again because government has seen the potential. You can modify the technology in a way that will be beneficial for the environment as well as for generating resources. And now we have also put a restriction on importing that tire waste from other parts of the world, because earlier it was allowed and people were getting those waste just to claim the tipping benefits. So now it is being restricted. And now, first of all, we have to treat our own waste. So that is very important at this stage. And I think it's in most of the countries, even Australia as recently in 2021 in December has said that they won't be giving their waste to another country. They have to treat on their own. This is the first step which you all have to take. It is very critical because you have a lot of waste lying in your own nation and you're getting waste from some other parts of the world. Now, second part, which you said that, regarding the technological intervention, you are absolutely right that it is very important at this stage, for having a sustainable growth model, you should utilize technology in the right perspective. It's a key to basically facilitate business and the operations. And we have to look at this, the capabilities of this technology transformation. So starting from digital technologies, Smart India initiative, which has already been taken by the current government, and there's a lot of focus going on smart cities, and then how we can take it towards supply chain management. There's a lot of push in that direction. How we can use the data analytics. So it plays again a very crucial role over there. So all these technological intervention plays a very critical role in going towards circular economy. So basically, it's not kind of one man's job. That's right. Because we are talking about starting from cloud computing to Internet of Things to logistics, shipping processes, all needs to be redefined. That is very important. I'll just give one quick example. So the area in which we are working on waste management, advanced technologies are now coming up. So earlier it was only people was talking just burn the waste, which is not a solution. We know it is creating another kind of pollution than going to the atmosphere. If you are just talking about energy, it is not sufficient. Now advanced technologies, what they do, for example, gasification, pyrolysis. The advantage of those technologies is we are extracting resources. So now for those resources, we are practically dependent on the conventional forms of energy, for example, fossil fuels. Includes a crude oil, for example. But now we can extract those resources from this waste. So ultimately, we are talking about circular economy. Our dependence or the reliance on the fossil fuels will decrease eventually. Plus our import, for example, this agriculture residue waste. I'll give you one just example. We in India, we are having close to 240 million tons of such waste being lying unutilized, untapped waste. They're just being burned down. It is close to 700 million tons, but some is going to cattle fodder and for other applications. But this 240 million tons, even 30% of that can go in generating resources. We can reduce 60 million tons of that import of oil from external part of the India, or from other part of world. So that much reduction would be significant with respect to the duties which you are talking. So technology will play a significant role, and again there like the support of government and that kind of collaboration with the circular economy, this international framework, and the R&Ds, the universities is very important at this stage for the nation.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Soni, for putting up very relevant questions. And Dr. Abhishek, you have answered them very beautifully, I think, touching over a lot of points for us to ponder over. And before you leave, sir, one of our viewers has been very intrigued by your answers, and she has a lot of questions for you. So if you could just go through them once and try to answer like within a limited time, some of them. So first, it's Ms. Mamta Jain, and first she asked Dr. Abhishek, is the report on MSW and challenges available in public domain? And if yes, if you could please share the link of the report. Then asked policy as polluters pays there, but no enforcement in the ground is the ground reality. So any thoughts about that? Her third question is hydrogen way forward mean that source segregation is not required? And the fourth question is, should India continue to be a part of waste colonialism? Is it like already for textiles? And should it foray into the tires too?
I think you just said 4 questions very quickly. So I think let me go one by one. You said that first one is on MSW, if I'm not
right
mistaken. So there are a lot of reports being published by government also, and a lot of guidelines also being developed by government to how to treat MSW. So those guidelines, the recent guidelines, I'll be happy to share maybe with you, and then you can circulate it to the participants. That's one thing. What was your second question?
Policy as polluters pays there, but no enforcement in the is the ground reality. So any thoughts about that? So you can see the question in the Q&A box. So it's there.
Okay, just right. So okay, Dr. Vivek, policy as polluters pay is there, but no enforcement is the ground reality. Any thoughts? So as it question is for me?
Yes, that is for Dr. Vivek.
Yeah, that is right. I mean, like policy as polluters pay is there, but yeah, I mean, ground reality, something which is always we need to ask. And there, the enforcement is the right word. I must say that, it should be enforced properly, which is not currently there, in the country. But maybe I think with course of time, it will happen. It is there at the industry level already. Industries who are creating pollution, there are some enforcements over there. For example, I'll just quote one quick example over here. Zero liquid discharge. It's ZLD. I think most of you have heard that term. It is pretty common in the industries now. And I'm working with few industries. So it is kind of imperative for them to go for ZLDs. Whatever gray water they are generating from their wastewater treatment, they have to use it for the plant only. They can't throw any liquid outside their premise. Same is happening for the other kind of pollution, for example, air pollution. So the CO2, whatever you are emitting, there are some kind of limitation for that. And if there are some other harmful gases you are emitting, then definitely there are certain restrictions which are being imposed even by Pollution Control Board. So that's why that's another reason that waste tire technology is not being promoted in India, because people are not willing to utilize it properly. They are not focusing on the operation part of it. Another, I think, question which is being asked is the hydrogen way forward mean that source segregation is not required. I think these are two different topics. Hydrogen way forward is we are talking with respect to energy scenario. Hydrogen is required, right? Is a you can say is a clean and green source of energy, though it is debatable. If it is coming from water, then it has its own challenges. If it is coming from other waste like biomass or maybe MSW, then it is still very important for us to go for source segregation, because if source segregation is not there, the quality of your feed or that waste will create problem for extracting hydrogen. And our aim right now for the country is to reduce the hydrogen cost from $3 to less than $1. So any step which you are providing in the processing will only increase the cost of hydrogen, which you don't want. So source segregation is very important at this stage, and we can't neglect it. Then I think the last question which is being asked is, should India continue to be a part of waste colonialism? It is already for textile. Should it foray into the tires too? I must say that yes, I mean you should, because as I mentioned that tire in India we're generating a lot of tire waste. So first of all you have to treat your own waste before getting any waste from outside the country. I don't see there is any problem. Recently, in fact, the government has implemented this thing. The quality is a problem, maybe, definitely. So you have to change the operating conditions of your process, and then according the product quality will vary. But it is really important at this stage to look into your own challenges instead of just for some these tipping benefits. You get the waste from outside the country. So yeah, I think to a certain extent it is correct. But how far we can go and for how long we can be able to implement such kind of restrictions, that will be seen only with time.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Abhishek and Ms. Mamta. I hope that answers all your question. Dr. Abhishek, thank you so much for your time. I understand you have committed your time somewhere else as well. So thank you so much for joining us. Dr. I'll give
Thank you for inviting me, and actually I have to attend that commission meeting only, which I mentioned is overlapping, but I'll be really happy to hear the recording because I want to hear Professor Jaideep. I've read his book in particular, and Mr. Animesh definitely. So please share the recording. And thank you very much for inviting me. Thank you, Dr. Vivek, for your questions.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Have a good day.
Right, Dr. Vivek, we can continue with the other speakers.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So, Professor Jaideep Prabhu, am I audible, sir?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, perfectly fine. Good. Yes. Sorry, I just started with the question initially. Okay. Anyway, now we can take a few questions. Certainly, there are many imperatives to the circular economy. Okay, and a couple of the points which the Dr. Abhishek has touched upon due to the specific nature of the questions. Am I audible?
I think Professor Jaideep's screen has frozen, so I'm not sure if he's able to hear you.
But mine is okay.
Yes, you are perfectly audible, but I think it's Professor Jaideep's internet.
Oh, because the same I am also facing with.
Yeah, I think we can wait for a few seconds for him to be back.
Okay, right, correct.
I think he can join us. Meanwhile, we can ask questions of Mr. Animesh Ghosh here, since he's here.
Okay, yeah. Okay, we can do that, right? Or yes, good evening, Mr. Animesh Ghosh.
Yeah, hello everyone. Hi, sir. Yeah.
Hello. I think Professor Prabhu is also back. What to do? Can we continue with the Professor Prabhu? Yeah, can we hear Professor Prabhu?
Yes, sorry, I think something happened with my internet, but I'm back now. If you can hear me, we can proceed.
Okay. Sorry, Mr. Animesh. We will continue after Professor.
Yeah, absolutely fine. Yeah, sure. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Professor Prabhu, probably you can understand this, the concept of circular economy, which is very wide. And this is applies to across the industries. And one segment of the industry is the small and medium enterprises, which has very high potential to waste reduction and the improving their efficiency. Why? Because of their economic contribution to the particular country. If you look at the SMEs in India, these constitute around 40% in terms of workforce and 40% in terms of exporting the items to other countries. And it plays very, very important role in Asian market, extending to the European market. Probably you are aware of it. So given in that context, and all of the focus has been now changed towards the small and medium enterprises as far as intervention of circular economy is concerned. So I would be asking a few questions to get more clarity on the picture. What is the possibilities of the circularity, intervention of the circularity in such small and medium enterprises? If you look at probably the contribution of the SMEs, that goes and that varies from countries to countries. So India has a high potential to waste reduction, recirculation efficiency, and economic contribution of India's small and medium enterprises. In this connection, what could be the policy makers' focused approach in initial stage to start implementing the circular economy in SMEs, because they have their very unique character, always have been criticized, right? So this is the main question.
Yes, excellent question. So again, thank you for inviting me, and delighted to be on this panel. So let me start by, talking about how I have come to this topic through my own research. So I have spent my career studying innovation. And in the first part of my career, I studied innovation in large Western companies, because the understanding was that that's where innovation happens. And then maybe about 15 years ago, I became very interested in innovation in emerging economies like India, where I grew up and where I have very deep connections. So when I started to look at innovation in India and other emerging economies in Asia, in Africa, Latin America, I was struck by how the approach to innovation is very different from the Western approach. First, the innovators in a country like India are very frugal. They are very good at doing more with limited resources. And this could be because they face significant resource constraints. Second, the mindset is very flexible. So there's a lot of lateral thinking and improvisation in the plans. They may have a plan, but they can switch very quickly to another plan and another plan. And third, a lot of the solutions seem designed to bring people who are outside the formal economy into the formal economy. So, and you see this kind of innovation across the board. You see it from, grassroots, people in villages, farmers, small scale artisans. You see it in startups in cities, tier 2, tier 3 cities, but metros. And you also see it in large organizations, government organizations, big multinationals, big domestic companies. And you see this in across sectors. You see it from energy, in the energy sector, you see it in financial services, you see it in healthcare, education, agri-products, food, and so on. So I became very interested in that. And of course, in India, when you ask people how to describe this approach, they will use the word jugaad. which we all understand very well, which is this ability to, to think laterally, to come up with some solution given often resource constraints. And so we started to look at this question of not just jugaad, but how you make it more, shall we say, systematic, and how you can do jugaad innovation. That is, how you can innovate systematically and potentially at scale to make the best use of limited resources. And in a way, that's how I have come to this idea of circularity, because at the heart of the jugaad innovation idea of doing more with less is being able to reduce, reuse, and recycle materials in a creative way. And interestingly, after having studied emerging markets like India and phenomena like jugaad, my co-authors and I found that this is not limited to emerging markets, but even in developed countries like the UK, where I live. Dr. Abhishek was talking about the Netherlands or Australia, UK, other European countries. In the West, they too have, despite being more, affluent and developed and access to resources, they are realizing the limits of the linear model of production and consumption. They are seeing the huge devastation of the environment that is caused by that old industrial model. And they are seeking, these new circular models in their businesses and societies. So that's a background. Now, let me come to your point about SMEs. What role do SMEs play? And I think you are putting your finger on it, because SMEs play a huge role in any economy. They form the bulk of businesses. They are particularly frugal because they don't have an option of resources. They're very agile and can move quickly. And many of them in a country like India are focused on solutions that could generate wealth, but are also solving social problems. So we see very interesting SMEs in India, startups in India. I think in India, in some ways, is a key. It's a key economy in the world, because it's got all the ingredients for this kind of very, I would say, fruitful, thriving kind of ecosystems. Because there's no doubt we have a lot of challenges in India, including resource challenges. But we also have a lot of opportunities because of a young population, very diverse, both combining traditional knowledge and 21st century skills and technologies. And all these come together often in SMEs. So I'll just give an example of one SME that I am very impressed by. It's actually based in my hometown, Bengaluru, and it's an organization called Reimagine. So like reimagine, it's called Reimagine. Started by Shailaja Rangarajan, who had a career in the corporate world and then gave it up because she was so passionate about these issues of circularity. So she is applying 21st century technologies like digital platforms, like apps on a phone, digital e-commerce, and ideas of circularity, like data, like Dr. Abhishek was saying, with our traditional practices. So if you think about India traditionally, we have at least 3 pillars, I think, that are foundational to a frugal economy. I was growing up in India in the 80s, we were very good with sharing. We shared resources. We shared, as a child, we would share school books, clothes, toys, comics, all kinds of things. So, we are used to sharing. And now we are in the 21st century where the sharing economy is taking off, enabled by digital platforms. The second pillar is what I would call the maker economy. So now we are seeing around the world, because of digital manufacturing technologies, small teams, sometimes of our students, can do things that only the government or big companies could do 10 or 20 years ago. And not only in software, but also in hardware. Dr. Abhishek was talking about Internet of Things. We have maker spaces, we have 3D printing, all this kind of thing. So, you can have making and, with digital technologies. But in India, we also have a tradition of making. If we think about our small scale artisans, They have extremely sophisticated skills working with, materials like wood, metals, textiles, but also things like rubber and so on. So that's the second pillar. And the third pillar is this circularity of reducing, reusing, and recycling. Again, this is a traditional thing. When I was growing up, our parents, our mothers would recycle everything, reuse everything, and so on. So we're used to that. But now it's meeting a 21st century imperative. So, we have all these traditional practices in India, and now we have also 21st century tools which can help us to, leapfrog. So coming back to Shailaja, her business is a very sophisticated example of these three pillars: sharing, making, and circularity, building on traditional practices in India, but using 21st century tools like digital platforms and data. So what does she do? She assembles, collects waste material, could be textiles, rubber, we have talked about all these things. She assembles these materials, metals, then she shares those materials with communities of rural handicrafts, craftswomen, people who are sophisticated with making things out of metals or textiles or rubber and so on. She develops, co-creates with them designs, and they then convert these waste materials into very beautiful products that can be sold on digital platforms to people not only in India but abroad. And these can be for household goods or can be accessories like leather bags, backpacks, jewelry, household fittings, beautiful artifacts. So, this is just one example, but we have so many such businesses in the SME sector. And of course, that raises a lot of issues for governments. How can government support them? So one is to simply accept, acknowledge, and champion this sector to enable them to do more of what they're already doing. Second, the government can play a very important role as a procurer of these services. So governments can buy these products for their own purposes. Governments have tourism or circuit houses, they can buy these products for them and so on. So, I can talk at length, but I'll stop there just to give you a flavor for what the possibilities are in this space and the role that SMEs can play and how they can be supported by government policy.
Yes, well said, sir. It's very interesting to get to know many things from you, from the conventional knowledge to your contemporary knowledge, particularly in Indian context. It's very, very interesting to have such input from yourself, sir. If you look at you talked about the mixed culture in the sense of three pillars: sharing, making, and using the contemporary tools. So here is one very important element which is emerging, or that can be a focus of the upcoming time: the motivating the people or enabling the people across these three pillars. For example, the building the trust. Do you believe that the soft attribute like building the trust, care for people, the listening others, these can influence the top management in SMEs or maybe other companies, so that the overall circular productivity can be increased? Do you believe?
Yes, absolutely. So, for any company to succeed, whether it's a large company or a small company, these, what we were calling soft attributes, are very important. Trust, yes, but I would say even more important are things like customer centricity and empathy and the ability to really put yourself in the place of the customers you are serving or the beneficiaries you are seeking to improve their lives. And really, even from a principle of innovation, you have to work backwards from that deep understanding of the problem that your beneficiary, your customer, your user is facing. And so you have to have not only that kind of compassion, shall we say, or a care, but you also have to have the ability to put yourself in their shoes and to see the world from their perspective, and then work backwards to come up with your solution, whatever that solution may be. It may use technology, it may use some business model, it may use some kind of operational setup. So these soft traits, attributes are very important. And I would particularly emphasize the role of empathy, because that then is an input into, a good design, what we call design thinking. It's a key principle of innovation, and that it ensures then you are developing a solution that is suited to the problem and actually improves the lives of the people who you are trying to engage with. So yeah, very quick response to your question. I completely agree. I think these kinds of intangibles, these soft attributes are very important, and they are key in those people who are setting up these businesses and then expect to them to succeed and scale. So again, if I go back to my example of Shailaja Rangarajan, she would demonstrate these soft skills. She clearly cared enough about this problem, not just from an abstract perspective. She obviously cared about the problem of waste and wanted to do something about it. But she also cares about the livelihoods of people who are involved in her business. These are the workers, the craftswomen who are converting or upcycling, not just recycling, they're upcycling because they're actually adding value to the waste. They're taking something that would be dumped and making it something that we would value and pay a premium for. So the key there are the people, the women who she works with. So there is a great deal of respect, mutual respect and empathy there. They are co-creating solutions. There is no sense that, she's doing them a favor. On the contrary, they are partners in this process. Without their skills, there would not be the possibility of raising the value. But equally, she is bringing something to the table from her corporate experience, her knowledge of technology, of how business works, how maybe more affluent consumers purchase, what their aesthetic preferences are. So, a combination, I would say, of having these soft skills like empathy, but with hard skills like business skills, technical skills, financial skills, marketing skills, and data analytics.
Okay, well said, sir. Thank you. I was about to ask the third question, but probably you have already answered in your previous two questions. But still, one element which is left in your part that I would like to take up. At a country level, we use different approaches to take the strategic advantage from other. Okay, so India have different policies approaches. Maybe East look approach, maybe a Western look approach, right? So if you look at we cannot assess the economic contribution at a country level of the circular economy. But we are feeling the feel of that there could be some benefit that we can share from each other at a country level. So
yes,
do you believe that this is the challenging enabler to India?
So, you are absolutely right. This is the whole problem of climate change and of resource limitations, of emissions, of carbon footprint, moving away from fossil fuels, of circularity. These are not going to be solved by countries on their own. These are systemic global problems, and countries have to work together, businesses have to work together, citizens, consumers have to work together across boundaries. And I think India is has always been in a very good position to do that kind of cross-country, intergovernmental kind of collaboration. We have been a rule-abiding member of the international rules-based system, very important member of international organizations like the UN. Currently, we are in a very important position there within the UN and many of its agencies and so on. We have also contributed to a lot of the thought leadership and the policy and the science around climate change and so on. Also, you have a very large Indian diaspora, which is in many countries in very, significant positions in politics, in business, in academia, across the countries of the world, across the continents. So I think India is in a very good position to engage, to be a very important international partner in addressing these questions. India is also, a very important part of this whole climate change issue, both as part of the problem and part of the solution, because India is still to grow to its full economic potential. We are still growing very rapidly. We have to raise something like 300, 400 million people out of poverty into reasonable livelihoods. But we cannot do that in the way that the Western countries did it, because that will just bankrupt the planet. Everybody knows that. So we have a huge opportunity to grow our own economy in a resource responsible, in a climate and planet responsible way. And the rest of the world has an incentive to help us do that. So I think we are making that case along with some other developing country partners to the West. And, now the ball in some ways is in the court of the Western countries to help us with achieve that objective. It's in their interest to do it, and we have made it clear to them that that is the case. We are willing to be partners, but the West has to support us in that process.
Right, sir. Right. So, thank you so much, sir. We are overwhelmed of having your knowledge, your experience on the subject matter, particularly when we try to understand both of the things, India as well as the circularity. So once again, thank you, sir. So over to you, Ms. Sujana. Can we go with the third speaker?
Sure, sir. Before that, I think we have another question from Ms. Mamta for Professor Jaideep.
Oh, yes.
Professor Jaideep, if you check the Q&A box, Ms. Mamta asks, apart from procurer, what other ways can government support the recycler, upcycler MSMEs?
Yes, great question. And, I'll try and be brief because that's a big topic. And I've recently written a book called How Should a Government Be, which actually addresses precisely this question. What is the comprehensive role of a government in stimulating innovation in various areas, including climate change, circularity? How can it stimulate not only large companies in the space, but also SMEs? So very quickly, I would say there are two big roles that governments can play. One is as a regulator. So that is as setting the rules of the game and creating the incentives and the platform and the system within which businesses can operate and achieve what you want them to. So regulation is very key here when we are talking about circularity and we are talking about stimulating innovation in businesses and so on. Because, we need to set up clear rules of the game. What are the incentives or disincentives that will encourage companies to be circular and adopt circular approaches and business models? We have to make sure that we not only have clear, simple rules, but that they are implemented, they're smart, they cannot be bypassed in any way and flouted in any way. So we need to have smart regulation and standards, okay? That's one area. The second area is what I call cultivation of the economy. This is how you encourage companies and you create, again, an ecosystem in which they can operate. So that is sometimes what we might call industrial policy in a country. How do you stimulate those sectors that you think are important? How do you create an ecosystem of small and large, public sector, private sector, all those kinds of things? So that's another area. And there I would just talk about the role that, say, the Niti Aayog is playing. I think you have a patron in Amitabh Kant for your journal. so the Niti Aayog is promoting all these things, like I was talking about, all these digital manufacturing technologies, maker spaces like Atal Tinkering Labs. These are these micro factories of the future, which would stimulate particularly small and medium-sized companies in communities to really develop new solutions to problems in their context, often using Internet of Things solutions. So not just software and digital, but increasingly hardware, using cheap computing and sensors and webcams and all these kinds of things. So very briefly, there's a lot that governments can do on the regulatory side, policy side, and industrial planning side.
Right, right. Thank you, Professor Jaideep. And I hope, Ms. Mamta, that answers your question. He's very briefly tried to focus on whatever he could. So I think that is great. Dr. Vivek, I would like you to continue from here, and we can move to our final panelist for the day, Mr. Animesh Ghosh.
Thank you, Ms. Sujana. Once again, thank you, Professor Prabhu. Welcome, Mr. Ghosh.
Yeah, thank you, sir.
Thank you. So probably you have been listening, all of us. Probably you have very good context. So here I would like to touch another aspect of the circular economy, which is more focused on the research practice or the research which is happening. And if you look at the research, it has a different connotation, and that it reveals that how the people are thinking about the circular economy as a concept, and how it is going as an input to the policymaker and contributing to the academia, right? So in that context, my first question that would be your deliberating point, that what might be the, let me read out the question. What might be the key challenges in order to successfully pursue future research and development on circular economy?
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to thank ICCE and Susan and the others in the organization who invited me to this platform. And it's a pleasure to be participating with such Professor Jaideep, Professor ABHISHEK, Dr. Vivek, and everyone. And hello once again, and good afternoon to all the participants here. Yeah, coming back to the question, like I myself being a researcher in the field of circular economy, what I can share my journey, what it has been, and perhaps that is the best way to share that what are the challenges lies at this moment as a researcher from India on circular economy. That will perhaps give a better introspection, I would say. So firstly, as like Professor Jaideep and other professors have already spoken, that the concept of circular economy, though we are calling it circular economy, and the concept has its origin in the Western part, but if we see in the context of India, this is not new for us. So we have been practicing these circular economic principles for, say, time immemorial. If we go back and see all these things, then we'll see the way our the paper, previously the paper which we have done it, that is there also. We can see at every stages of our life we have come across the concept or principle of circular economy day in and day out. Now coming to the challenges, what are the challenges in Indian context? India has adopted the circular economy as an executor after I would say they have delayed to some extent, but as I am also trying to thrust upon the point that we have been practicing, but now we are trying to follow the norms which the Western countries have set to some extent. Now, if we look at the framework, then I would say there are 6 challenges which we need to overcome at this moment. So 6 challenges means 6, the heads, I would say, suggest. Number 1 is technology. So when I'm talking about technology, we do have a lot of technologies available in country, as well as we can adopt from the other nations. But the point is, which are the proven technologies which is actually helping in, say, we were discussing about recycling, we are discussing about upcycling. So which are the proven technologies, and to what extent they are efficiently being used at this moment, that is yet to, like, we are yet to get some sort of, say, manual or a guideline or some suggestive papers on that. So more and more research can go into those components, and that would also help not only Indian researchers, also to the other researchers. Now, the second point is the finance. Now, the finance is a big area where especially we see a lot of scope here in India, and we currently see a lot of dealing and lot of engagement at the Western countries. In the Western nations, especially European Union, they have come up with policies on the financing the circular initiatives. They are also policies on how to finance the startups on circular economy, who are working on the circular economy, green bonds. All these things are in discussion, and they have started executing it. ING Bank is one of these banks who have started executing it. They are guiding the other nations as well. Whereas in India, we are yet to have such banking policy still from RBI or RBI. So that is one area where we have to work on, and there is a scope for research and suggest to the policymakers. Now, coming to the Prabhu sir was discussing about the regulators at the last point. So that is a vast area where we have to work on. I would give a small example, though it's a vast area. Recently, we all have come across that vehicle scrappage policy of India. So that's a huge initiative which government of India has taken, and not only taken, they have started executing it. Since 2020, it has been passed through Parliament, and we are looking at the executions. But still, there are a lot of challenges at this moment. How the exact policy would be executed, why the term voluntary has been used in the policy document, those are some of the points which needs more deliberation. Then, like, what are the ways these like 15 years and there's 20 years, these things would be, these vehicles will be automatically they will be tested. What are the testing criteria that would be noted? So all these things have to be systematically aligned, and we don't, at this moment, we don't have say a guideline for that till now. What we are trying to do is, everyone who trying to come to a common platform where this policy can be executed smooth. So therefore, this is an example where a regulator has an immense role to play. In addition to that, obviously, NITI Aayog has been focusing on multiple spheres around how to execute circular economy in India. So
I think Mr. Animesh's internet is not functioning properly.
I think we can wait for another couple of seconds. Let him
Okay.
come back.
Sure. Meanwhile, Professor Jaideep, you were answering Anuradha's question in the chat box. So Anuradha had a question, and she was asking, how do we install circularity in agriculture, packaging, construction in one platform? So would you like to tell Anuradha about it?
Yes, happy to. I responded in the chat.
yeah,
What
am
I
I
said
audible?
about digital platforms. I think Mr. Animesh is back. Maybe we should just go to him, because I have actually addressed the question in the chat. We'll
Uh,
just direct people to that.
all right. Yes, I can see the answer. So I think that is great. And Anuradha, I hope that answers your question. Mr. Animesh, are you back with us? Can you hear us, Mr. Animesh?
No, he is here, but I believe there is some bandwidth
Yeah,
issue.
maybe. Yeah, he's back again.
Mm,
Oh.
This is the
So,
when we meet online. We don't
yes, yes,
need the
yes.
email us.
Yes. So, I mean, I can elaborate on the point, the question that Anuradha asked, which I think is a really interesting point. And it actually refers back to some of the things I was talking about. And I'll again give the example of Imagine as a platform. So we now have these digital platforms and apps even, and sometimes super apps that basically are multi-sided markets. So the digital platform becomes a place where many different players can converge and exchange in an economic sense. So, you know, the classic two-sided market digital platform is something like Amazon. So it's on your phone, you want to buy something, you go there and you can buy from anyone on the other side of the market who wants to sell, and Amazon just sits in the middle, right? So then I gave the example of something like Reimagine, where I want to buy some beautiful things for my house. I go on the platform and there are women in Odisha or someplace making these beautiful products, which they then offer on the platform for me to buy. So now you can have multi-sided markets like all these restaurant food delivery apps. You know, there's people in homes who want to order food from restaurants, and then the third party are people who deliver it to you. So in this way, we can use these digital platforms to bring together many parties, agricultural producers, farmers, agribusiness, packaging, consumers, large companies. We can do it in a B2B sense, or we can do it in a B2C sense. I think Animesh is back, so we can go back to him.
Hi, thank you. Sorry for the interruption. In fact, I was speaking, I did not realize even it got switched off. Am I audible now?
yes, yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So coming back to the other three challenges, that is apart from the regulatory challenge, there are the cultural challenge for India is also, we cannot discard that. Though we do take pride in using the plastic bags and all these things multiple times. Hardly those plastic bags are non-usable for us. We hardly dump it. So that is something which we do, but at the same time, not many of us are pro user of, say, second-hand products. So those challenges are also there. But in terms of research, there is a gap there also, where we can use, or we can learn, or we can look at the data of, say, refurbished goods or remanufactured goods. Nowadays, we can see a section called refurbished goods in Amazon, say, or Flipkart. But if you say go to, say, like 5 years back, that section was not available. So these are some of the scopes, as well as there are certain scopes for researchers also. We have to look into, give deep dive, and we have to look at the data, like to what extent these things are being in use. Coming to the market for like not only the refurbished goods, we have also, say, if many, like some of us have been to Pondicherry, then we have like, or say Goa, we have seen that model where you can pay for hiring a vehicle and you can go around the city. So these models were already available in India, but like now we can see this Ola, Uber, and all these things concepts, and now we have started like repackaging these models and trying to put it in front of the world. So this is called circular economy. So though things were there, but it's the perception of an individual, or say the policymakers, how we have dealt it, how we have seen it, whether sufficient data were generated or not. Where these things were never digitized before. Right now, through digitization, we have been capturing these things, and we are trying to study. So there is a lot of challenge, and at the same time, a lot of scopes for the researchers to look into it. Until unless we look into it, we don't have sufficient data. or we don't have that lens to understand what is the market for this circular economy, which we are calling it. And the last point is structural changes. So structurally, if we say, what does that mean? I am trying to mean that how fast Indian government can, institutionalize all these initiatives or these things, so that like to the best extent possible, we can document all this data. Then we can have a common data bank. We need to set up circular economy compliance based products, or say business models. So these things we have to think and we have to set up. And for that, once again, only the policymakers cannot help. The researchers has to also come together. They have to conduct research and provide sufficient data for the policymakers to take a decision. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Ghosh. Rightly said. You being a very prominent researcher in the field of circular economy, so probably you have a right understanding about the mindset of people by reflecting and reading the different articles, different journals, or maybe different researches which is happening towards the India's focus on circular economy. I just want to understand one thing, that there are many studies that we can see over the internet that is focused on the technological intervention. Although there has been different practices like the Lean Six Sigma to reduce the waste, to improve the resource efficiency, right? But still, I just want to understand in terms of your research base, are there any studies related to soft approaches to deal with it? Soft approaches means to deal with the people so that it can improve the circular efficiency. Do you have any idea about it?
Yeah, see, like as I have been focusing on, if I focus on the research journals which we are coming up at this moment as a researcher, we always go through those researches. So like some of the renowned authors, like Buchan is one of the renowned authors, then Walter, from whom the concept has emerged. So they have been talking about performance economy. They have been talking about the loop economy. These are some of the softer components which they have, some of the practical things which they have put into the theories. The things were already existing, but they have put it in a framework and they have presented it. And at this moment, as I have been focusing on the the digital component of it, so that we can generate sufficient data. We have been talking about big data analytics, and then Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence, all these things. So there are great case studies. Great case studies. I am not trying to focus here since we are talking about mostly in India, so I'm talking about India only. So we do have some good examples, like Abhay Deshpande's recycle. They write it RECYKYLE. So that's how they write it. So those organizations are trying to digitize the entire supply chain. From we have say like 4, 5, the stakeholders in this entire journey: producer, then your generator, then processor, then recycler, and the municipalities. Okay, so they have digitized this data at every point. For every stakeholder, they are doing it. And the best part is they through the usage of the technology such as blockchain, it's a tamper proof, and you can trace from source to the at the end where it is going. If an upcycled product has come to you, you can trace it from where it has come. You can understand the journey of that product itself. Then we have been discussing about if we reflect back, say 10 15 years back, we used to have these cold drinks in bottles. So bottles were after when we have consumed cold drinks in a bottle, then if we return those cold drinks bottles, then we were paid back 3 rupees or 4 rupees, something like that. But at this moment, everyone is using these plastic bottles. So there are models even in India at this moment, like Cairo Water. So it's a best example where they are selling these water bottles into paper boxes, corrugated paper boxes. It's a drinking water which they are supplying, and they have a wonderful system of taking it back. So reverse logistics, all these things you can document, you can digitize, and the case studies are available, and we all, as a researcher, we all are dealing with it every day.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Ghosh. But nevertheless, I would like to emphasis here only two questions that you can keep on thinking at a later stage. Okay, the number one.
Yeah.
Every problem is unique, and many times the tools are available to us. Intentionally, we use them to solving the problem, but the problem is unique. The pure and true research is that we select the methodology or develop the methodology according to the problem. The problem here is the true nature of circular economy, which is more centric to receive the economic productivity out of the system. So what are the different kind of right methodology that we could use or we can develop as far as we want to take circular economy in India? Okay. Another question which is also give us a very interesting insight is that probably we can keep on thinking, given a holistic nature of the complete India's character. Again, I'm coming back to the very soft and very sensible few soft approaches, okay, to deal with the people. Can we develop something at a household level, sensitize the people so that it can have an impact on the policymaker, and accordingly we can develop the country level of model?
Okay.
Right. So these are the two things. Probably we can interact at a later stage, maybe based on our mutual interest, but based on your interest on research capabilities, the kind of you own. So that's what I have given a few couple of triggering questions that we can keep on discussing. So once again, thank you, Mr. Ghosh. It was very interesting to get to know about your knowledge, about your research contributions, and about your article, particularly your insight on the circular economy. Now, I would like to hand over the discussion to Ms. Sujana. So probably she would like to conclude here so that we can proceed further.
Dr. Vivek, for very beautifully moderating the session and putting forward your questions. And thank you so much, Mr. Animesh Ghosh. Despite the bad internet, we could very well understand your answers. And, thank you for making time for this webinar today. We have another question from Ms. Mamta Jain. First of all, thank you, Ms. Mamta, for being a very active attendee today. Mr. Animesh, this question is directed towards you. She's asking, India needs a lot to go into R&D to tackle greenwashing. And where does India stand today, especially in terms of LCA? So if you would like to answer that.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah, LCA is life cycle assessment, where this is one area where like we can see a lot of interest from researchers as well as a few stakeholders, and like as I said, like not only in terms of interest, we have very limited organizations who are actually working intensively on LCA model in India. I have not come across too many organizations who have been like engaged in LCA. where they are trying to understand the product life cycle and these things. But yeah, lot of engagement we can see on the battery aspect, lithium batteries. So battery is one area where we can see a lot of interest. And since we all are like government policy is pro like EVs and then battery operated models, so therefore we can see a lot of interest around that. And one more component here is like we can also see a lot of interest around solar products. So these are the two areas where LCA we can see. So LCA can be for any product. So yeah.
Can I add something here to
Yeah,
add
please.
to the answer? Yeah. See, as far as greening practices in particular economy is concerned, this is a very wider in nature. We have been we have been practicing since long. For example, for the intervention of energy efficiency, right? So this is again connecting to the reducing the carbon footprint by introducing the star and labeling program. So bigger the star or more the star, we try to more compliance to the regulation, and we try to improve the efficiency of the different equipment, and so that we can minimize the carbon footprint. Now, here is the biggest challenge. If you look at the life cycle analysis as a concept, it starts with the identifying the different inputs and identifying its spectrum from input to the is last point. Okay, so this is based on the author's perspective, based on our own understanding, and then drawing the system boundary from where you are drawing the complete spectrum. For example, we use so many papers on a daily basis, and from where these A4 size papers are coming. But we just generally take the printout and it is going as a waste out of after using them. And if you quantify the contribution of this waste, which are coming from your different trees, and how much environmental degradation we are contributing. The kind of spectrum we consider from life cycle assessment, it varies, and it has been away from the researcher point of view, the holistic picture, then stretching out the spectrum. So in that way, probably there are very good study, and the Indian policymakers and the researchers have contributed very good amount of research on this aspect. But still, now we are into the different time, we are into the different paradigm shift, which is related to technological intervention, artificial intelligence, blockchain, maybe few others one. So with this concluding remarks, I would like to conclude my addition to this question, and hand over once again my conversation to Ms. Sujana.
Sure. Thank you so much, Dr. Soni, for adding to Mr. Animesh's answer. I would once again like to thank everyone who planned to join us today. Ms. Mamta actually says that she considers ICC to be a university for all information related to circular economy. And let me tell you, ma'am, this was our only initiative to be a one-stop destination for all information regarding circular economy. And we're very happy that we've been successful in that. Just to conclude, before concluding, I would like to bring to everyone's notice that to continue fostering research in circular economy, we are very soon coming up with the second edition of our journal on circular economy. And I take this opportunity to invite articles and research papers in circular economy. So if you would like to make your contribution to the journal on circular economy, you're most welcome to send us your papers to the email ID icce.journal@gmail.com. I shall put it in the chat box here. So once again, thank you so much. Thank you to our panelists, Professor Jaideep, Dr. Vivek, Mr. Animesh, Ghosh, and of course, Professor ABHISHEK Sharma for being with us today. Thank you so much and have a very good evening.
Yes, good evening. Yes.
Thank you. Yeah.
Good evening, sir. Good evening, Mr. Ghosh. Good evening, Professor Prabhu. Of course.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
Thank you. It was a great pleasure. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
Last not but the least, thank you, Ms. Sujana.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.